They threw their trash on floors he'd just cleaned, made jokes about the old janitor guy, and treated him like furniture. None of them knew that the man pushing that mop cart had once been the youngest Marine to receive the Navy Cross. Welcome to Stories for Us. Before we begin this powerful story of hidden courage and unexpected recognition, tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from today? And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button. These moments matter more than you know. The hallways of Lincoln High School had seen thousands of students come and go over the decades, but Samuel Rodriguez had been there longer than most could remember. He arrived every morning at 5:30 a.m. sharp, 2 hours before the first bell rang through empty corridors, and left long after the last teacher had locked their classroom and headed home. To the students rushing between classes with backpacks slung over shoulders and phones in their hands, he was just part of the scenery, a quiet man in navy blue coveralls who cleaned up their mess without complaint or conversation. Sam wore the same uniform every single day, crisp navy coveralls with Rodriguez stitched in white thread above the left pocket, worn work boots that had seen better years but were polished every morning, and a weathered baseball cap that cast shadows over eyes that seemed to see everything. He moved through the school like a ghost, appearing silently when bathrooms needed restocking with paper towels and soap, vanishing just as quietly when hallways needed mopping after lunch spills. Most students had never heard his voice above a whisper, and many had never heard it at all. He had a routine that never changed, not once in 15 years. Morning cleanup in the main building, starting with the administrative offices, moving through classrooms where teachers hadn't yet arrived. Lunch period maintenance when he'd fix broken lockers, replace burnt-out bulbs, and repair whatever teenage energy had damaged the day before. Afternoon trash collection from every classroom, every office, every corner of the building. Evening deep cleaning when he'd mop every floor, wipe every surface, and prepare the school for another day of learning. The teachers respected him in the distant way that busy professionals respect reliable service workers. They'd nod politely when they passed in the hallways, say, "Good morning, Sam," if they arrived early enough to see him working. Some remembered to say, "Have a good evening," when they left. But even they didn't really see him, not completely. He was reliable, invisible, efficient, and never caused problems or asked for anything beyond his paycheck and the basic respect of not being treated poorly. The students were entirely different. They saw him as part of the building itself, like a fixture that had always been there and always would be. They dropped papers and candy wrappers inches from trash cans he'd just emptied, watching him pick up their mess without a word of thanks. They tracked mud and snow across floors he'd just mopped, leaving dirty footprints that he'd quietly clean again. Some made jokes when they thought he couldn't hear. "There goes the janitor guy," or "Watch out for mop man," or worse things whispered behind his back about his age, his accent, his quiet demeanor. Sam never responded to the disrespect. He just kept working, kept his head down, and did his job with the same quiet precision and dignity he brought to everything in his life. His hands were calloused and worn from years of manual labor, marked with small scars and burns from countless repairs around the school, fixing heating units, replacing broken windows, maintaining the infrastructure that kept the learning environment safe and functional. But there was one scar they never noticed, hidden usually by his work gloves, a jagged raised line across his right knuckles that told a story none of them could imagine. It was during lunch period on a Tuesday in November when everything changed. Emma Martinez, a junior with curious dark eyes and a habit of noticing details that others missed, was heading to the library to work on a history project when she saw Sam replacing a broken ceiling tile in the main hallway. He was stretched up on a stepladder, both hands working carefully to position the heavy acoustic tile into place without damaging the surrounding grid. That's when she saw it. As his sleeve pulled back from the exertion of lifting, a thick, jagged scar became visible across the back of his right hand. Not the kind you get from a kitchen accident or workplace mishap, but something deeper, more deliberate, the violent kind that comes from combat and survival. It ran from his knuckles almost to his wrist, raised and discolored, like something had torn through flesh and muscle and been sewn back together under battlefield conditions by someone who cared more about function than appearance. Emma stopped walking completely, her books clutched against her chest. She'd never really looked at Mr. Rodriguez before, not really looked beyond the uniform and the quiet presence. But now she noticed other things that suddenly seemed significant. The way he moved with precise, controlled motions that never wasted energy. The way his eyes constantly scanned the hallway, automatically tracking movement, exits, potential problems. The way he stood with perfect military posture, even while holding cleaning equipment. The way he carried himself with a dignity that seemed almost formal. "Mr. Rodriguez," she said quietly, her voice barely carrying across the hallway. He looked down from the ladder, genuinely surprised to be addressed directly by a student. His eyes were sharp and alert, not the tired, defeated gaze she might have expected from someone who'd been cleaning schools for decades, but something more intense, more aware. "Yes, miss?" His voice was deeper than she'd imagined, with an accent that carried notes of respect and old-fashioned formality that seemed to come from another era. "That scar on your hand, how did you get it?" For a moment that stretched longer than it should have. Sam went completely still. The question hung in the air between them, like something fragile and potentially dangerous. Emma watched as his expression shifted, not angry or defensive, but careful, measured, like he was deciding whether to tell the truth or deflect with a simple explanation that would end the conversation quickly. He climbed down from the ladder slowly, each movement deliberate, set his tools aside on his cart, and looked at her with an intensity that made her realize she'd asked something far more significant than she'd intended. "You really want to know?" he asked quietly, his voice carrying weight that seemed to fill the hallway despite its softness. Emma nodded, unable to speak, sensing that whatever came next would change how she saw the man who'd been invisible to her for 3 years. Sam was quiet for a long moment, then pulled off his work gloves slowly and showed her his hand fully. The scar was worse than she'd first seen, deep, brutal, the kind of injury that should have ended in amputation or permanent disability. The skin was twisted and uneven, telling a story of trauma and healing that had taken months or years. "Fallujah, Iraq. November 2004, he said simply, his voice carrying the precision of someone who'd told this story before, but not often. "My unit was providing security for a school evacuation. Iraqi children, teachers, families trying to get to safety during the fighting. Improvised explosive device went off right next to our Humvee. Shrapnel tore through the armor plating like it was paper." Emma's eyes widened, her breath catching as the implications hit her. "You were in the military." "Marine Corps, 22 years of service." He flexed his scarred hand slowly, the damaged tissue moving stiffly. "That day, we were protecting a school just like this one. Iraqi children the same age as you students here, just trying to learn, just trying to have a future. When the IED detonated, our vehicle rolled twice. 3 of my Marines were trapped inside with fuel leaking everywhere, fire starting to spread." He paused, looking down the hallway where students were walking between classes, laughing and talking, completely oblivious to the conversation happening beside them that was reshaping how one of them saw the world. The twisted metal had wrapped around my hand when I reached in to pull them out. Combat medics said I should have lost the hand completely, that the damage was too severe. But I wasn't leaving my Marines behind. Not ever. That's not what we do. Emma felt her throat tighten, emotions she couldn't name rising up. Did they make it out?" Sam nodded once, firmly. "All 3. They went home to their families. 2 of them still send me Christmas cards." He pulled his gloves back on carefully. "I received the Navy Cross for that day, youngest Marine to receive it at the time." The Navy Cross. Emma knew enough about military awards from her history classes to understand what that meant, second only to the Medal of Honor, awarded for extraordinary heroism in the face of enemy fire, for actions above and beyond the call of duty. "Mr. Rodriguez, why are you working here? I mean, after everything you did, everything you sacrificed." Sam picked up his tools and looked at her with something that might have been a smile, but was more like understanding. "Because this is where I'm needed now. Different kind of service, same fundamental purpose. Keeping people safe, keeping things clean and functioning properly so others can succeed. He gestured toward the hallway full of students. These kids deserve a safe, clean place to learn and grow, just like those children in Iraq deserved protection from the violence around them. Emma watched him work for another moment, seeing him completely differently now. The precise movements weren't just the habits of an experienced custodian, they were military training, discipline that had been drilled into him through years of service. The constant awareness wasn't paranoia or nervousness. It was the protective instinct of someone trained to watch for threats, to keep others safe. The quiet dignity wasn't shyness or submissiveness. It was the strength of someone who knew his own worth and didn't need others to validate it. "Have you ever told anyone else about this?" she asked. "Never saw the need," Sam replied, returning to his work. "I don't do this job for recognition or gratitude. I do it because it matters, because every job that serves others matters. The Marines taught me that service isn't about glory. It's about doing what needs to be done, whether anyone notices or not." That afternoon, Emma couldn't concentrate in any of her classes. The image of Mr. Rodriguez, no, Marine Rodriguez, kept running through her mind like a movie she couldn't turn off. A war hero, decorated for extraordinary valor under fire, spending his days cleaning up after teenagers who treated him like he was invisible furniture. The injustice of it, the profound disconnect between who he was and how he was seen, made her feel sick to her stomach. She found herself watching other students differently too, seeing their casual disrespect with new eyes. Watching Jake Morrison deliberately drop his lunch tray close to the trash can, but not in it, knowing Rodriguez would clean it up without complaint. Watching Ashley Chen leave her empty soda bottle on the floor outside the gymnasium, rather than walk 10 feet to the recycling bin. Watching groups of kids laugh and point when they saw the custodian approaching with his cart, making jokes about the old Mexican guy who cleaned up their mess. They had no idea who he was, no idea what he'd done for his country, what he'd sacrificed, what courage he'd shown. No idea that the quiet man they ignored and disrespected had once run into enemy fire to save lives, had earned one of the nation's highest military honors, had served with distinction for over 2 decades. The next morning, Emma arrived at school 30 minutes early. She found Sam in the main hallway, restocking paper towel dispensers with the same methodical precision she now recognized as military discipline. Everything in its place, everything done correctly, no shortcuts or half measures. "Mr. Rodriguez," she said carefully, "would you mind if I told my history teacher about what you shared with me yesterday? We're studying the Iraq War, and I think people should know." Sam stopped working and looked at her carefully, considering. "Why would you want to do that?" "Because people should know who you are. Not for recognition. I understand you don't want that. But because kids should understand that heroes aren't always who they expect them to be. That the people we ignore might be the people who've done the most important things." For the first time since she'd known him, Sam Rodriguez smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes and transformed his entire face. "You can tell your teacher," he said quietly. "But remember something important. Being a hero isn't about the uniform you wear, or the medals you earn, or the recognition you receive. It's about showing up every day and doing what needs to be done for others, whether anyone notices or not. That's the real measure of a person." Emma nodded, understanding something profound in that moment about service, sacrifice, and the quiet dignity of those who serve without seeking recognition or reward. As she walked to her first class, she passed other students in the hallway, students who were still dropping trash carelessly, still making jokes about the custodian, still treating him like furniture. But now she knew something they didn't. She knew that the man with the mop cart was also the man with the Navy Cross. She knew that the quiet janitor was also the Marine who'd run into fire to save lives. She knew that sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones who never tell you they're heroes at all. Word spread quietly through the school that day, but not as gossip or rumor. It spread as something more respectful, more significant, an understanding that passed from Emma to her history teacher, from teacher to principal, from one student to another, through conversations that mattered. By the end of the week, the hallways felt different, charged with a new kind of awareness and respect. Students still dropped trash, but not as carelessly. Many started walking those extra few steps to actual trash cans. Teachers stopped to actually speak with Sam instead of just nodding politely in passing. The principal made a point of shaking his hand during morning rounds, thanking him not just for his work at the school, but for his service to the country. Nothing dramatic, nothing that made Sam uncomfortable or put him on display, just a quiet shift in recognition and respect that he'd earned long ago. Sam Rodriguez continued his routine exactly as before. Same arrival time, same uniform, same methodical precision in everything he did. But now when students passed him in the hallway, many of them met his eyes. Many of them said, "Good morning, Mr. Rodriguez," instead of pretending he wasn't there. Some thanked him when they saw him emptying trash or cleaning their classrooms. He never asked for recognition, never demanded respect, never told war stories or displayed his medals. He just showed up every day and did his job with the same quiet excellence he'd brought to everything in his life, from the battlefields of Iraq to the hallways of Lincoln High School. Because that's what real heroes do. They serve without seeking credit, protect without expecting thanks, and find purpose in making other people's lives a little bit better, one day at a time. Samuel Rodriguez never needed a uniform to be a warrior, never needed recognition to have purpose, and never needed applause to know his worth. He found meaning in service itself, whether pulling Marines from burning vehicles in a war zone or keeping school hallways clean and safe for the next generation of Americans. Sometimes the most powerful stories aren't about what people do when everyone's watching. They're about what people do every single day when no one's paying attention. They're about the quiet heroes who walk among us, carrying their history and scars we never think to ask about, serving in ways we never think to notice. So now I ask you, have you ever met someone like Samuel Rodriguez? Someone whose quiet service hid a story of extraordinary courage and sacrifice? Share their name in the comments. Tell us how they taught you that heroism comes in many forms, that dignity doesn't depend on recognition, and that the most important work is often the work that goes unseen. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, subscribe to help us honor the quiet heroes who deserve to be remembered. We'll see you in the next story. And until then, remember, the next time you see someone doing humble work with dignity and precision, take a closer look. You might be standing next to a hero,